Science news, science news, science news. Time for the science news. Number one, Artemis, right? Artemis is scheduled to take off on the 1st, April 1st. It's still a go for April 1st, although they do have a 1-week window, I think, till the 6th. So they're going to try for the 1st. And it also mentions the Artemis 3, which had been scheduled for 2028. It's now going to scheduled to be launched in mid-2027, mid next year, but it's going to be an orbital mission. It's not going to go to the moon. But yeah, again, do they even have the lander to test? I don't know. Have we seen the lander that they're going to pick? Yeah, the lunar landers that are under development by SpaceX and Blue Origin. So they got a launch, but they don't even have a lander yet. This isn't how we did in the 60s. It wasn't like 1968 turned around. It's like, well, we're still thinking about how to design a lunar lander. We might have a lander by the summertime. We don't know. No, they didn't do it like that. Yeah, so 2 landing attempts, Artemis 4 and 5 in 2028. Boy, what are the chances that they're going to try and land people on the moon in 2028 when they don't even have a lander yet? This is just so ridiculous. This isn't how NASA's supposed to do things, you know? It wasn't like they came up with the idea for the space shuttle in 1974 and then launched it in 75. It's just, no, it's like, where's the time schedules to test hardware? Where's the time schedules to space ready anything? This is just, these schedules make no sense. But we'll see on the 1st. If it looks like it's going to be a go, if I'm confident, I'll do a live stream. And there's another one. Space traffic controllers keep crafts orbiting the moon in their lanes. Yeah, from February 2025. Blue Ghost. Right there. Yes, a year ago, robotic lander Blue Ghost reached the moon. Yes, Firefly Aerospace. Yes, that was a really good mission. But there's only a few things in lunar orbit, said Will Coogan, chief engineer of Blue Ghost. This seems so unlikely to be an issue, the idea that they might run into something else in orbit. Only 11 spacecraft from the United States, China, India, and Korea are currently in orbit around the moon, and yet, for the past 15 years, a small team at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California has been keeping track of spacecraft orbiting the moon and Mars, raising alerts when it seems like 2 of them might be too close to crossing paths. So yes, they're actually doing space traffic control to make sure that orbits do not get too close to one another. Yes. The effort, known as MADCAP, Multi-Mission Automated Deep Space Conjunction Assessment Process. That's a struggle for an acronym, if you ask me. All right. Mr. Berry said the main reason is that there is some probability of collisions around the moon is that the spacecraft's orbits are chosen for specific reasons and not randomly. Yes, so they tend to, it's not like the orbits are all random. They tend to be clustered into regions, bands of space, particularly at altitudes around 100 kilometers. Yes, so the altitudes that they choose and the sort of the orbital inclinations that they choose can make it tricky. So they're just talking about how they had to keep track of Blue Ghost during that mission because there was a chance it could run into something else. But anyway, MADCAP on the job. You know, not a lot flying around the moon, but they're keeping them in their lanes even as we speak. Okay. All right. Here's another one. All right. NASA's asteroid hit is a smashing success. Yes, right there. Yes, not 2022. The DART mission, called the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, the craft shortened Dimorphos's orbit around a larger asteroid, Didymos, by 32 minutes. It also generated a giant cloud of dust and debris captured by telescopes around the world and in space. Okay, so scientists have also found that the spacecraft's impact shifted not only the orbit of Dimorphos around its parent asteroid, Didymos, but also the trajectory of the pair around our sun. Infinitesimal, but did change it. The shift is tiny, a mere 150 milliseconds per journey around the sun. It's just amazing that they actually can measure in that kind of time frame. 150 milliseconds journey around the sun. Before collision, the asteroid zipped around the sun at more than 76,000 miles an hour. Dark quickened that speed by about 2 inches an hour. Later this year, a spacecraft named Hera, launched by the European Space Agency in 2024, will arrive at Didymos and Dimorphos to define these measurements. They're going to visit and get close-up shots. But yes, anyway. But yes, the DART mission did move the not just one, but both asteroids. Yes, applying energy had an effect. Speaking of things, hitting things and burning up, suspected meteor over Cleveland looked like a morning sky fireball. There's a picture of it right there. Oh, yes. Many people saw this. A suspected meteor fell over Cleveland area on Tuesday. This was March 18th, reported in the Philadelphia Inquirer. This one really looks like it's a fireball, which means it's a meteorite, a small asteroid. It's estimated that Tuesday's fireball might have been the size of a softball or a basketball, or perhaps even larger, and that it would have hit the atmosphere at many tens of miles per second. There could be some fragments on the ground, but yeah, it happens all the time. I saw quite a fireball when I was in New York a number of years ago. It made the paper. I saw it out of my hotel window in Manhattan, but apparently it was burned up over the state of Maryland, so it's kind of weird how far you can see. But yeah, I saw that fireball. That was very, very brilliant, and that was another one was well recorded. But yeah, miniature meteorites. There are people who've done videos I've seen where if you want to do meteorite hunting, all you need is a good flat clean roof, because little tiny bits like sand-sized little pieces of meteorite are falling out of the sky all the time, and the teeny tiny little particles, they're so small that the air resistance is so high that their terminal velocity is so low that they just kind of gently just fall like a grain of sand dropped out of the hand. And you can find them, the iron nickel meteorite pieces, with regular magnets. And I've seen tutorials where people make up these meteorite sweepers. They'll take like a piece of wood, they'll put a bunch of magnets on it and put like a piece of plastic under it, so that basically you get like this like a rolling duster. And if you've got a flat tarred roof, you just take the magnet and go over the whole thing, blah 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 blah, sweep the whole thing, and you'll get a bunch of little things stuck to the magnets. You sweep them all off, you put them in a container, put them under a microscope, and you're going to find debris and junk and just regular stuff. But if you know what to look for, you're going to find at least a handful of micrometeorites in any sweep. They're literally everywhere. And people who do meteorite hunting, they tend to do that in like the frozen areas, like in the Arctic, where you have snow and ice on the ground and it can remain untouched for a while, especially if it's in between seasons, like in the summertime when you don't have snowfall, but you can just kind of go around again with magnets or even just visually, and you'll see rocks just sitting there on top of the snow, and because they just fall, boom, and you can spot them because it's a rock in a big white tundra, and that's you can pick up little meteorites. They literally are falling out of the sky 24/7. They're everywhere. So the Earth is covered in meteorites. Oh, there was a whole write-up in the Science Times 100 years ago. Robert Goddard did his first flight of a liquid-fueled rocket, and there he is with said rocket. The other way. Basically, the combustion chamber's on the top, and all of the fuel is stored on the bottom. And these tubes that are transferring fuel and oxidizer to the combustion chamber So you got thrust there, and you got the fuel there. It was just the convenient way for it to work, yeah. Yes, Robert Goddard arrived at his aunt's farm in Auburn, Massachusetts 100 years ago, March 16th, 1926. Goddard and two other scientists, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, well, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky was a writer and a visionary. Was he, a scientist? I mean, I think he was a futurist and a writer. He drew designs for rockets, but I think of Konstantin Tsiolkovsky as sort of like the guy who invented the concept of space travel, and Hermann Oberth, Oberth was again a writer, promoter, a showman, scientist, but Hermann Oberth was really the one who inspired Wernher von Braun, and there would have been no German rocket team, because there would have been no German rocket club if it weren't for Hermann Oberth. But yes, so liquid fuels were the key to space travel. A propellant like liquid hydrogen or more oomph. But yeah, they used liquid oxygen and usually a fuel, usually a non-cryogenic fuel. So the Germans used alcohol. It's a two-pager. There he is with one of his more advanced rockets there. That one was interesting. I've seen a newsreel of him showing off this rocket where it had steering fins. So like they had the rocket and they were spinning the rocket kind of at a 45-degree angle, and it had these plates that came behind the tail, and so as it leaned one way, a plate would come down to deflect the blast the other way. So it would like counter, and so it was an interesting steering mechanism. Okay, so gasoline. He was using gasoline and liquid oxygen. So yeah, okay, not as much oomph as gasoline. Yeah, so gasoline, but in the 1920s. See, in the 1920s, gasoline was not like gasoline today. Because when we think of gasoline today, it's actually like a very highly refined fuel. But in the 1920s, gasoline was just a combination of dozens of random strings of hydrocarbons, which is why cars ran so poorly back in the 20s. But yeah, gasoline was a very impure. It was basically, in the early refining process, I think what they would do is that they would heat up crude oil, and it would separate into layers, and basically they would have diesel, kerosene, and then whatever was above kerosene was just gasoline. It was just or something that effect. I mean, it was extremely crude and unrefined. So I don't know how well that would have worked as a rocket fuel. But yeah, so they used liquid oxygen, which they stored in a vacuum vessel. Yeah, so this rocket was from 1935. That was the 1935 test rocket. So yeah, the first rocket took off at 2:30 in the p.m. Yeah, it climbed to 41 feet in altitude, 41 feet. And it landed 184 feet away, the first flight. Goddard was pretty low-key about it. Simply recorded in his diary that the launch was successful. Yeah. But yeah, he was greatly mocked in the American press. And because he was very shy, and he scoffed at publicity. He really just wanted to work on his rocket research, and so whenever there was press coverage, it was usually negative, and they called him a crackpot. But the only people who really noticed his research were the Germans. Wernher von Braun, who developed the V2 for the Nazis and later the Saturn V for NASA, and the Redstone and other designs. Yes, blazed a trail and incorporated many features into our most modern rockets. Yes, so there would be no V2 without Robert Goddard. All right, but 100 years ago, it all began. 100 years. Doesn't seem like a long time, does it? 100 years from the first rocket flight. That's what we have now. last 100 years. All right, I talked about this. This is from the Inquirer, New Level of Dystopia. Oh, sharing sidewalks with Uber Eats robots. Yes, I did a posting about these little things skimming around the sidewalks. I did a little short where the first time that I saw one a couple weeks ago, took a video of it, and since doing that first video, they've been popping up. Now there's like sets of them. I'd be walking down the sidewalk and there'd be like 2 or 3 of them just kind of lined up, just sitting there waiting to do something. I don't know where they charge the things. It's not like the electric bikes where there are these charging stations. I don't know who looks after these things. I don't know if people in vans pick them up and service them, or where they go. I have no freaking idea. But I did record one doing a delivery and crossing the street, and yeah, I don't know, sharing the sidewalks. I mean, with everything we got to do, this is the thing. As someone who lives in Philly, I complain a lot about the fact that the e-bikes are everywhere, and these hopped up, super amped up e-bikes that are zipping all around the Philly sidewalks. And I'll do another video about that at some point, because whenever I talk about the e-bikes, I get e-bikers saying, "Fran, you're exaggerating all of that. They don't go that fast, and they're not anything like that." It's like, oh, I do not exaggerate at all. Yes, but now having to share the sidewalks with things running around that you could easily trip over, because they're right at knee height or just below knee height for someone of my height, that if you were turning your head for 1 second, that you could literally fall on your face because a robot is crossing your path. But apparently people have already been spraying, this is Philly, so people have already been defacing these little robots and spraying things like, "Destroy me, please." Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. On Filbert Street near the courthouse, one was rolling around ahead of us, and a woman, a red shower cap, who was parked across the street in the SUV, yelled out her window that they were not delivery robots, but rather police surveillance bots, keeping a watch on us. Well, that's obviously not true. They clearly are Uber Eats robots, but they are spying on us. I mean, the cameras are, I'm sure they're selling the data. But yes, the idea that our sidewalks will now be taken up by little machines, taking up precious real estate and moving around and trying to trip us over and run over our toes. I mean, this is Philly. It's just a matter of time before people start lashing out. Remember what happened to Hitchbot? Okay, this is interesting. Possibility of hack-proof encryption gains Turing Prize for scientists. There's the scientists right there, and there is their experiment. Yeah, the photograph is from 1989. Quantum cryptography, is the process by which using spooky action at a distance to broadcast information through space without any time involved. The Association for Computing Machinery, the world's largest society of computing professionals, said that Doctors Bennett and Bassard had won this year's Turing Award for the work on quantum cryptography and related technologies. Called BB84, their system used photons, particles of light, to create encryption keys used to lock and unlock digital data. Thanks to laws of quantum mechanics, the behavior of a photon changes if someone looks at it. Yes, it's the observer effect, spooky action at a distance. So if anyone tries to steal the keys or look at the photon, it changes its state. It would leave a telltale sign of attempted theft. It's called quantum teleportation. Their technique relied on the quantum property called entanglement. When two quantum objects, such as two electrons, are linked together with each other, even though they're very far away, change one, it'll change the other. So yeah, quantum entanglement is the future. It is the future of communication. I think it gives a hint to why we have the paradox of why there's no radio transmissions, or why we have yet not received radio transmissions from other civilizations through radio telescopes. I've talked about this before, that the radiocentric way of looking at technology in the 20th century, which gave birth to SETI, and then which revealed the fact that no matter where we pointed our radio telescopes, they really didn't find anybody squawking or talking, was because once you get to radio, you quickly get to other technologies. And I think that, the quantum world is really where communication really gets to be serious. So I would think that any advanced civilization, once they discovered radio, would at some point very quickly discover the quantum world, and they would start using the quantum world for transmitting data. And once they did that, they could, communicate no matter how far away they were instantaneously without any delay. You don't have to wait for anything at the speed of light. It's just instantaneous. So it seems like, that the natural evolution, and it looks like we're headed that way too. Probably let's see, if we're still around and if we still have technology in 100 years, then I'd say in 100 years, we probably wouldn't be using radio for anything. Everything would be quantum. We'd just be transmitting data by quantum, because even in short distances, the relativistic time delays create all kinds of problems. But if you can remove the relativistic effects of moving objects, even like satellites, and go to the quantum world where you get no time delay whatsoever, well, everything's going to work a lot better. But yes, quantum teleportation coming to a device near you. This was cool because the Times had a fold-out page of Bell Labs. Oh, you recognize that? Yeah, you recognize that room? It's where they do Severance. Yeah. But yeah, they're talking about all the innovations of Bell Labs, from Echo 1, Telstar. Is that Telstar? Is that, yeah. Oh yeah, that's Telstar. Yeah, that's right, Telstar. Do 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 do. Yes, and yep, first transistor, the first mobile phones, rah rah rah. Yes, digital imaging, the CCD. Yes, all these innovations. Microchip. Well, they didn't invent the microchip. Here's an error though. Right here, it says here, the telephone, the video, the picture phone was invented at Bell Labs, and here it has a frame from 2001 says where seeing placing a thing on the Bell Labs picture phone. No. You see that? That was not Bell Labs picture phone. That was a trick. It was shot on film. He's looking at a projection screen. It's film being projected. It's film. I believe it's Kubrick's daughter that he filmed at their house on film, and then they just projected it on a screen. There's this lattice. They project it through a mask to make it look like it has horizontal lines, but it's film. So no, that is not the AT&T picture phone. The AT&T picture phone was black and white. It was not color. It was extremely low baud, and yes, that was a trick. I don't know why they would even claim that was the AT&T picture phone. Maybe someone at AT&T said, "Oh, that's our picture phone in the film," and they published that in some review in 1968 or whatever. But no, it's just like no, calling bullshit on that. That was a rear projection screen, just like all of the other screens in the film 2001: A Space Odyssey. They are all rear projection motion picture screens. All of them. That's how they did it.
It's 2:00 p.m. 2:00 p.m. 2:00 p.m.
Yes, thank you. It is, but I am really, I do want to visit this building. It's open. You can go there. They've got tours, everything, and has some shots here of the early transistors. That's a reproduction of the original prototype, and I've got some. Yeah, here we go. in a block of lucite. The transistor invented at Bell Telephone Laboratories, manufactured by Western Electric. There it is in its original case. This would have been from like 1949, 1950, I guess. Encased in lucite, a paperweight. This is how they used to do things back in the day. And this is the RCA version. So now the RCA version, they actually have one covered. Yeah, that's the way you would buy it right there with the covering on it. So that it wouldn't have any, photoreactive properties. But they actually have one there clear. We can see it encased in its little plastic encasement there. Right there. The RCA version. But yeah, a couple of originals. There's one more thing I want to do, because I usually, when I do the science news, I want to do some... Yeah, I want to do this one because this is a cautionary tale. It's important. I want to talk about this. I've talked about this in the past. But this is a big problem. It's the macho mentality, guys who work in construction, particularly outdoors. There's a sort of like you got to be tough. You got to be tough about, whatever it is that you're cutting or grinding or welding. You don't wear a respirator. Only those people wear respirators. Well, here we go. As countertop cutters fall ill from inhaling silica, companies push for immunity. Yeah. Silicosis, cases of silicosis are skyrocketing, mostly because of increase in the demand for countertops and companies that cut countertops. But yes, and says here, January Republican lawmakers expressed concern that the litigation might cut $30 billion industry or drive business overseas. Well, yeah, but you're killing lots of young working men and women too, who are cutting countertops. The workers who cut slabs of, they call it quartz, but it's all it's all silicate. There's no safe way to cut quartz, which they describe as extremely toxic. Engineered stone, as is widely known as quartz, is a commercially appealing name that reflects its primary component. Finally, crushed quartz, blah, 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 blah. Most quartz slabs sold in the United States come from manufacturers in countries including China, Israel, and Spain. They reach American homes from network, blah, blah, blah. But then, people have to cut it. You have to cut the holes in them and cut them into shapes so that they can form them. When engineered stone is cut, it lets off tiny particles of silica. The dust lodges in the lungs, where the body identifies it as a foreign object and mounts an aggressive immune response. Over time, scar tissue forms and spreads, slowly killing the lung. Yes, it gives you silicosis. Sideline to this is that in coal mining, because the current administration, they want to bring back coal mining as like a major American occupation. The problem is that in recent decades, the instances of black lung have been going down among coal miners, but silicosis has been going up by an order of magnitude. And they say that's largely because the kinds of coal that were thought of 50, 80 years ago that coal miners were mining, which were veins of, pure coal. Coal's graded in all these different ways, different kinds of inclusions and stuff, but the kind of pure coal doesn't really exist anymore because all that's been mined out. So the stuff that they mine now is largely filled with silica. And so because of the change in the kind of coal that's being mined, silicosis amongst coal miners is up and up and up. But the weird thing they say about this is that it isn't even a matter of how you cut it, because you think, well, stop dry cutting the quartz, you do wet cutting, no more problem. But here it says, Mr. Henniker said the first safety concerns were about the blades and the heavy slabs. He sometimes wore an N95 mask to inhale less dust. He could tell when he was cutting quartz rather than marble or granite because of the smell. It reminded him of burning plastic or rotten eggs. Nobody talked about the risk of silicosis. Never once did I think that the dust was going to be creating what's doing this type of harm to me. And then in 2022, Dr. Fazio diagnosed a 48-year-old undocumented man from El Salvador with silicosis. After 15 years of cutting slabs, he arrived at the hospital in such pain that he couldn't work. In an interview, the man said that he always wore a mask and cut with water. Nobody told us this dust would cause silicosis, he said. He remained anonymous because of his immigration status. But yeah, no safe level for silica. This is what makes me weary of all these new fibers. I talked about this before about these new kinds of silicon fibers that are used to replace what used to be done with asbestos. I mean, fiberglass itself has, I don't think fiberglass is innocuous if you're breathing it in, and certainly this new quartz cotton it's a form of like artificial asbestos that they're putting in all kinds of things for fireproofing now. Whenever you go on Google and talk about quartz cotton, it's like, well, it's considered to be safe. Well, how is it considered to be safe? How many decades of research have they done to determine its toxicity in humans? 0. And they just started manufacturing and saying, oh, it's not asbestos, so it's safe. Well, it's artificial asbestos. Yeah, it's a silica. It's silica fibers. You don't want to breathe it. So yeah, I mean, this is what worries me. Of course they never tell you that it's going to kill you. Of course they never tell you about silicosis. And in Philadelphia, whenever I'm out on the street and I see people and they're cutting the cement sidewalk, right? And what is cement? It's it's a combination of limestone, right, and silica. It's the aggregate is silica, the sand is silica, and it's kind of just glued together with the limestone glue. Forms concrete, and so whenever I'm out there, inevitably they're sawing concrete, dry saws, no water even. Nobody's wearing any masks, and they're just cutting it in big plumes of it, and are just going down the street. Nobody cares. People are breathing it in. No big whoop. It's just Philly, doing Philly. But literally every day I see that. And then when I see people cutting cement blocks on the sidewalk, because they're doing construction or something, or doing pavers, the cement pavers, and they just got a dry saw, and I've seen people, they're sitting right in front of the saw, and the saw's it's literally blowing the silica right in their face, and they're just bathing in it, and then they just grab another, and there's just assembly line cutting, and they're proud of being covered in it. It's like, man, light up a cigarette, put it in a Marlboro. Yeah, that's working for a living. And whenever I see someone do that, it's like, this is some 25, 27-year-old guy who's going to have silicosis by the time I'm 35, and they're going to be disabled by the time they're 40, and just no care about it. Just because it's unmanly to not kill yourself doing your daily job. But yeah, you gotta take it seriously. Rule of thumb, any airborne particle, you don't want it. If your job involves airborne particles, yeah, don't breathe it in. If you do, whatever it is, it's gonna catch up to you. And if it's silicon-based, yeah, after 10 years, 5 years even, that can be your ass permanently. Silicosis. So, anyway, a cautionary tale to end the science news, and we're over time. Yeah. That's it. That's it for the science news. Till next time. Till next time. In the lab. That's where I work. berserk. In my lab, it's where I work. Friend lab, it's what you're watching. Friend lab, it's what I'm doing. Working at the bench again.